On the right zip code. Hi there. Good. Okay, it's 3 o'clock and I think we have all that we're going to have, so, are we- okay, we'll call the meeting in order. Pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Okay, Robert Dew.
Here.
Kevin Fuller is absent. Don Jensen.
Here.
Tom Schiske is absent. Archie Vickerman.
Here.
Terry Furlong.
Here.
Brett Gary is absent. And then Brian Frandl is acting as the interim city manager. Maybe I should send him a text. He's not here yet.
Okay, we'll pause the meeting for a moment. Corral, the city manager. You're in.
Yeah, I am beat up. We spent the whole morning working at we purchased a house on Silver Lake. And we were doing yard work, we're transplanting plants. And they had 4 layers of landscape carpet.
Oh, my.
Plastic, permeable, non-permeable, and then they have mulch in between all of them. So I'm going through and ripping it all up.
You, is this a house you're going to?
Yes. Hopefully. One of these days.
Oh,
Oh,
patience.
yeah, so he's coming. We got my 15-year-old grandson and my wife and I, and we did about 4 straight hours of physical.
Mm.
Keep you young.
Yes. But now I need a nap. Huh?
Today?
Yeah.
At the new place.
Yeah.
Give me 60 minutes, then you can,
Pardon?
give me 60 minutes and you can go take your nap.
Okay.
Is there any proposed changes to the agenda? None? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and adopt the agenda as printed. We have approval of minutes. Are those, those are not attached, right?
No, those were in the packet.
Okay, anybody review the EDA meeting minutes from our last meeting and or the joint EDA planning meeting?
I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
In favor? Aye. Opposed?
Who seconded?
Don Johnson.
Thank
Okay, meeting open to the public, nobody in the room. Do we have anybody online?
We do not.
Perfect. Authority business and action items. First item is update the joint EDA planning council meeting. We agreed to select participants to review a potential process for the redevelopment master plan. The consensus was, I think everybody was there, weren't they? Were you there, Don, at the joint meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Yeah, so the consensus was that it would be worthy of at least taking a look at it and potentially doing a review. The question is, how do we get it done and at what level? And so we're going to put together a joint group to sit and have that discussion. And we offer to provide at least 2 bodies from EDA. Planning was going to provide 2, and I believe council was going to provide 2. Is that correct? So omitting you 2 as potential EDA candidates. I will happy to sit on, and I think we're talking about 1 or 2 probably 60 to 90-minute meetings to get through it. So just to put it in context, this is not going to be a year-long commission. That's not how I perceive it, and I'm going to do my best to not let it in that direction. So I'm
Archie really wants to do it. I'm okay with doing it. Okay.
okay. So the EDA representatives to that group will be myself and Don Jensen, and trying to think, how do we convey that back to, I'll just drop an email. We can do that through staff.
Yeah,
Okay. So we picked our members, if they pick their members and council picks theirs, and then it's just a matter of getting the first meeting on the calendar.
I know at the planning meeting, they were wondering about what time it was going to be. There were people that were interested, but their availability during daytime hours is now. So could it be an evening meeting?
That works as good as anything for me, to be honest with you. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great.
Obviously, for me, the earlier the better, but
I would say the same, and just as a general rule, Wednesdays and Thursdays are not good.
Okay, so Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday,
Mondays or Tuesdays.
preferably Monday because council has meetings on Tuesday. So I'll propose Mondays.
yeah, Mondays work really good for me.
In the evening, yeah, Monday is usually free day.
Okay, I'll let them know.
All right, next item. It's captioned as review and recommendation for approval of new public funds assistance policy. Is there a draft out? I have not seen a draft yet at this point either, but we put this on the agenda. We put it under based on a discussion that we had with the folks outside council and folks that are drafting it. This ultimately is going to be a policy reviewed by, or excuse me, approved by the city council. However, it was recommended by council that it effectively be a joint policy as opposed to the EDA having their policy and the council having their policy. So I don't know if it will be the exact same policy or if it'll be, here's the EDAs and here's the councils and they mirror. Yeah, it's going to be one.
Okay.
But as an EDA, we'll need to provide recommendation for approval, and then ultimately we probably want to adopt it because as an EDA, we want to make sure if we adopt it as a policy that we're following, we discuss, providing funds to private business, that it's in keeping with the policy. Because in theory, there are funds that we can distribute that don't need to be approved by council. So
Having somebody write that up, or somebody working on that? Who's doing
I am not sure.
That's what I want to know.
City attorney.
So I think Michaela, the last I heard is that she got the lease agreement
Mhm.
and forwarded that to her. And then they were gonna work out a policy. And September 7th is our target date to get this approved
By council.
by council.
Right. So having said that, the challenge we have is we do not have an EDA meeting between now and the 7th. So when it's available, we'll wind up circulating it to the EDA, and I will need to find out. I'll need to find out how we can do this, whether we can do some sort of proxy thing by email, or if we actually have to gather. Hopefully we can get a electronic vote of some sort, and that will be acceptable to be able to make recommendation to council to approve it on the 7th of September. And I do think it's important. I do think it's important that the EDA provide that recommended approval to the council, because when I think a lot of, with the exception of TIF deals and things like that may originate here, a lot of this type of thing is going to be driven by the EDA. it's gonna start here more than likely. So,
When we do, I think when we do have an approval at city council, we must have you run it for the approval of the money. If there's any-
oh, sure, because we're gonna do that alongside of that. Oh, yeah, well, is that a separate?
And I think that's the September 7th.
That's not a separate item. So, what the mayor's referring to is we have prior approved the staff to, get this, $125,000, we'll call it a grant with collateral to, the new restaurant coming in. So that's gonna get, formal approval from the council.
Okay.
On the 7th as well, that same night. And I think I can make that work. Even though I don't believe the council's required to approve it, I'm not gonna hire lawyers to fight it.
We talked about grants last night, that was my first one.
Yes, it was. That's all.
Tied to that. So I didn't want to bring that up, this grant, because we're talking the same thing, a grant. We're talking about the council last night. That part of the CARES money, we handed out all that grant money to businesses, $510,000 to all the businesses, 10,000.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I guess, again, some of you were on that call, but the advice from outside counsel was that we're not, we're putting the policy in place. Some think that there's a policy laying around here somewhere, but nobody's been able to find it. The suggestion was that there's no way we could be operating without this policy by statute, but anyway, they're drafting a policy that is, and a lot of changes have been made anyways in recent years. So they're drafting a policy that is in keeping with current statutes and meets the requirements of what the city desires as well. And we're not trying to, this is not any attempt to clean up anything that has been done. It's just moving forward. Let's get it, make sure it's correct. So that's what this policy will be. I'll be fine. I'll get back from Connecticut the prior day, but I'll be here. So. Okay, so I wanted to have a discussion about engaging a firm. What day are we on here? We're on the 17th. So I would assume no one, at least in the room, has heard anything about redemption on that property. Okay,
That was what, the 23rd?
22nd, I think, of August. So that's a week and a half away or something, or a week away. So technically it's Sunday, but once the 22nd passes, then the redemption period is up. And I'm talking about I'm sorry, I don't remember the address, but that we purchased out of foreclosure. Provided there's no redemption, the city will own that property, and I think we should, once it's in our hands, and this would be in conjunction with a number of the other things we talked about in terms of downtown parking needs and opportunities, I think we should look to engage a firm. I'll say a firm. I think WSB would make the most sense because it would be the most efficiently operated city engineer to do a rudimentary study on what that component would look like tied in with a larger connection to that parking lot back there behind Luther's auction. Does that have a real name, or what we just call it?
So the parking behind Luther auction.
So, we all know the. So, it would not, it would be at least my thought that the request be for a study that might look slightly more broad at the entire downtown district relative to parking as part of the study, but not in that.
Okay.
The in-depth component is taking a look at that building, giving us some very rough concept, docs of what that could be, could look like. And so what I'd like to do is, unless we wanted to go out to multiple firms, I don't think we need to, because it's really small dollars here. And it's a professional service anyways, that we ask them for a proposal to maybe a proposal with options. So, give us the skinny version, give us the step up and maybe 2 steps up and what those costs would be. So that at our next meeting, we can look at those proposals, get them going.
Are you thinking of utilities too? So we got electrical, we got.
Storm sewer that runs through there.
And some old storm sewer. We have-
Through the lot.
Infrastructure in those lots.
Yeah, I know that there is, because there was a vacated alley, right? Because I have the issue in my building on the corner, that vacated alley runs through there as well. I don't think I was going to get that in depth. I think again, and this is just my opinion, and I'd like to hear what others think as well. It is really, if we take ownership, which I suspect we will, of that building, what might we do with it so that we can then start saying, what are the costs going to be? We might get a little bit into what that lot might look like, but if that study is to be undertaken, I think it needs to be undertaken a little more broadly than just the EDA, unless there's a difference of opinion and we want to include that. We can. And at that point, I think we would need to get into, because we would be asking for approximated construction costs and such with that, and in which case we'd want to get into, deeper into the utility components of that as well, not just. Yeah.
So that property, if you get that property, I was just curious, it sounds like you wanted to make it a throughway to 7th Avenue. Is that what-
Well, yeah, there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was kind of broad discussion about what it might be. And should we just let it go into foreclosure and become a blight in downtown, or is there a potential public purpose for it? And the potential public purpose we talked about was it can be a connection between that lot and the downtown district, either pedestrian and or vehicle. Some people didn't like vehicle. Some people said that might be okay. So we don't really know whether it's one or both, but the real intent is to create a connection and potentially some green space within the downtown that's missing from our, kind of.
I think that's really the soul of the council, is that the connection between 7th and the back parking lot, and that there'd be some sort of green space, look nice, and might be some, benches or something.
That was the intent, but I don't know the PDA promised.
So that was my question. I mean, that seemed more like maybe a city function as opposed to an economic development function. I guess I thought you guys recreate it as a sellable lot for another business, or I just didn't know how that worked.
No, the intent was not to do it as a sellable lot to another business. No. I think that, again, as my memory serves, and I was a little bit behind this, but the intent was we have, as part of the redevelopment master plan and the concepts that we've had, one of the things that was in there was some downtown green space being important. It was originally earmarked for this corner of buildings that we are now. And so we're and then alongside of that, the parking issue is shown. And how are we going to deal with that? And that's where, okay, well, let's get that lot if it's available. Try to execute that as an EDA, which we did. You know, hopefully it'll come to conclusion here. And then we'll figure out the particulars at, you know, at that point. So we've opted not to spend any dollars or any time on it until we actually own them. So that, I mean, that's the broad intent. Now, in terms of execution of whatever that plan is, I think that at that point would be up for discussion. You know, I wouldn't see it necessarily as an EDA thing. We might drive the concept and the initial planning of it. But then at that point, if it's green space, it might get in part handed over to parks and part handed over to public works because of the public parking lot and utilities that are involved. And then council and city manager can figure out how to pay for it.
Well-
More invitable for it.
Right. Right.
One thing that comes to my mind is there was some conversation about potential grants. And I think when we have the discussion with WSB on doing a quote, maybe see if they have any thoughts on this being eligible for a grant. Yeah.
To turn it into a green space.
Or public, well, right, because I know at one point they were, a parking ramp was a potential, and not at that location, but those things are eligible for grants. So that type of. Yeah, parking ramp in this little tiny.
30 stories tall.
Right, so we can include that in as part of the request to have WSB
Let us know.
do at least some rudimentary research and make a comment on potential grant availability as to how to fund it. You know, I guess in terms of how we fund it, that could either be part of the study or that could be a follow-on piece. One or the other. I think our goal ultimately is to try to get this in. You know, if there was some at least rudimentary concept plan that was deemed acceptable, was to try to get something in and have a budget for this. That's kind of really the immediate goal. So, other thoughts, comments about?
Well, I think that's a good idea, just to have, you know, in the new budget to have that at least earmarked to get started, at least. That makes a lot of sense. There's no point once Sunday hits and they don't redeem, that we shouldn't be trying to move forward.
Are you past the initial stages of the CIP plans though, or not? Okay.
What was the question?
Oh, I was just wondering what stage you're at with the CIP plan, because I know something had to be submitted by July 15th.
Yeah, my last inquiry and discussion on it, there was some sort of draft on the CIP or something, and there was some dollars earmarked for that parking back there, which I think we felt was woefully inadequate for white woefully which we felt was kind of woefully inadequate to do what really should be done, and that was part of what was driving this whole process as well. So
If we look at a redesign, obviously, for that parking area, that space, is there adequate lighting to accommodate that? Would that be part of the whole?
That would be part of the improvement.
along with the electrical car-
I mean, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that is what I think.
I think a lot of people believe
Yeah,
that.
probably people are gonna eat at a restaurant and have to walk. a
Well, and I think
block
that's
or two there.
that's such a key, important piece, because you want to make that, you know,
As inviting.
inviting as you can, because you've got a restaurant coming in, we have other people who may start to be looking, you know, at the Lilly building, we're talking about, I mean, that's a key parking spot for the downtown.
It's a great asset, and let's face it, it doesn't get used because it's not maintained, and I'm not knocking anybody within the city. you know, it's not maintained, it's not well lit, it's dangerous to walk on. I mean, I think was it Chifsky said that, you know, his wife tripped on, you know, the traffic patterns, the signage is no good, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of problems about poking at it that need to be fixed. And it's a, you know, it's quite an asset in the city, or can be if we get it right.
Yeah.
So, and we need parking, or we're gonna need more parking as some of these things come along.
I think there's little doubt that we'll see a tremendous amount of use once it's completely in place, right? Without a doubt.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I can attest to, you know, the lot behind my building is not the best in the world, but people park there before, and then we'll walk all the way down to the center of town before they park over there. I don't know.
Up in the window waiting to them?
No, I just see beer cans. So I know they've been there.
They're just going sidewinders.
That could be. That could be. Any rate, so, you know, what's on the table anyways is to, ask WSB for kind of a multi-tiered proposal, to look at concepts on, what we would do with that building to create a connection between that and the parking lot. And, the higher tier proposal would be to include, you know, what this parking lot should be and what needs to be done. So I'll ask them to look at it multiple levels. Because I think at some point, if they came back and said the study, I'm just making up numbers, but let's say this, yeah, this study and what you're asking for to do the whole ball of wax would be $30,000 or something. And the EDA says, well, I would suspect we would say, I don't know that we should fund that entire 40. We're willing to fund some of it, but we think that, you know, the lot portion maybe should be funded by council or somebody else within the city. Then maybe we can at least share the burden. But I think part of our role is let's get the ball moving. To see what
Would you like me to get a quote and then come back to like levels of options?
with WSB. I was gonna go ahead and take it on. I've already talked to him about it. So if that's okay, give him some parameters for the quote. And, used to live in it for a little bit, so at least, you know, I think I can give him some clear guidance on what we're looking for. So at least at our next meeting, we'll be able to. Hey, just going to WSB, I don't see any outside, and I don't think there's nothing by in our bylaws or statute that prevents. It's only just for that.
So when we get that Sunday or whatever, the sale of getting the property, what do we do? We get the keys?
I think you tear it down. No, I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest. I would suspect that there will be some, it was done, it was effectively done, done by the sheriff's department through the county. So, I think at that point, we should be getting some correspondence from the county. But it's probably not a bad idea, to maybe have somebody from staff, you know, call down the county next week to just say, hey, we purchased this out of bankruptcy, the redemption period was 40 hours, 1 second, and
Do we change the lock?
nobody's written us a check for the check we wrote, so we assume that we own it now. What's next? Yeah, I'm not.
Please, yeah.
Because I'm assuming it's still full in there, knick-knack stuff.
All their stuff is done.
I think it's still in there. I guess I don't know. I'm still there. Well,
Yeah, and I think we'll,
all around up on the street.
well, and I think that would be the next step, right? Once we formally take possession of it, we know we own it. You know, then at that point, we're gonna need to do some investigations and see what's in there, because I personally am gonna, and so we can plant the seed now. You know, I'm gonna advocate that we get that thing down right away, because it's not gonna be used as.
No, we don't want somebody to break in there and.
Well, we should probably disconnect all the services right away for somebody to
How does that work for insurance?
What's that?
How does that work for insurance? Somebody breaks into it and gets hurt or something to that
Well,
effect.
I mean, that would be another reason we need to know whether we own it or not, right? I mean, if it's entitled to the city effective Monday,
Does that go in the umbrella?
we should have properties.
Thing. I'll double check.
Well, vacant buildings.
Are not very good insurable.
No.
Well, and that,
They're like 3 or 4 times more expensive.
Mhm.
so another reason to,
Well, do we?
Get it more-
board up the windows?
I would think so. I mean, that, I think it's gonna be, probably more city manager problem than PA problem, but I would say, I would be my recommendation that, we protect it from illegal entry and until we can, get a backhoe in there and tear it down.
Public works, you know.
Yes.
Public Works city manager. Okay, so we'll do that. I'll contact WSB and try to have something for our next meeting, hopefully in advance of our next. I might even ask him to attend and talk through it, depending on how complex it gets. So,
We talking.
more.
He's already been out on the lot and we walked around it and so, yeah.
He's done a little rudimentary work and I've already briefed him on the building pass-through thing. So he's somewhat in tune.
He'll be back in the office next week too. He's out this week.
Okay, any more discussion on that? Perfect, we have a plan. Next item was an update on discussions with the owners of the Lilly Building. So I'll tell you what I know. We had a meeting with the owner, one of the owners, and their broker, the mayor, myself, were you there?
I didn't make him.
Did you meet with Ted?
Ted was
He was on-
joined by phone.
he was on-
Ted Senior?
No,
Oh, that's, you're meeting with the owners.
no.
The owners are his dad and his aunt.
Well, the broker represented as representing the owner. So we took that at face value. We didn't ask for proof of ownership, but we took that in good faith and we didn't make any deals. We didn't make
He's
any,
doing the deal, yeah.
we didn't make any deals with them. So
Last deal, remember we talked about at the joint meeting that they were supposed to by midnight that night.
Yep.
They did come back and say.
so they've gotten back to us. Yep, they've gotten back to us and they did not, that purchase agreement there is there now. And what we had discussed with them, they kind of described, the challenges that they're having with the building and either getting it sold or getting it occupied and or maintained. So they laid out those challenges and we suggested that if the sale did not go through, there could be a path where either we could help guide them through their challenges and potentially participate in some of that. And I don't mean to speak in tongues here, but I'm trying to be a little careful with the information I'm not sure they wanted to share. So they, there's a potential path to get them through some of those challenges. Is something that works well for the city and works well for them. And I can tell you the specifics of the first steps that we discussed about. That is what they have not done in there, and one of the problems that we have is that that building is allegedly laden with hazardous materials of some sort. They don't know, we don't know. Sounds like nobody knows. So the first step that they wanted to take, I think is underway because I did have is to get a couple quotes on the cost of doing a hazardous material survey of the building. So they were I believe they're undertaking that task right now. Once they have that completed, then they can get they should be able to get a reasonable estimate on abatement of those hazardous materials in the building. And alongside of that, get a quote to that is not necessarily a path they've chosen, it's just an option. But if they get the hazardous materials out of there, we know what the cost to flatten it is, it solves one of their problems. And then at that point, once we have costs in front of us, when I say we, us as an advisory to them as the owners of the building, then they can kind of make a decision on their next steps. Does it make sense to, quit struggling with this thing and take it to the ground and pay tax on unimproved property, and see what's next, or do they go into renovation?
I don't believe that'll happen.
I don't either, based on this.
No, that they would put money in for renovation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Based on the discussions and kind of what was laid out, that was the recommendation that, as a path. But in order to get there, we need to find out.
Yeah.
I agree. We need some
facts.
facts. We got to deal with some facts here. What's actually in there? What does it cost to get it out of there? What does it cost to flatten the building? And what is the value of the building, of that dirt, once it's flattened? Is it less or potentially more than what it is as it exists? So that's where we sit.
I'm sure that they have asbestos, I'm sure that they have lead, because they use lead for all the print. I think there's still ink in the ink well, and the ink baths.
Yeah, and there was a lot of maybe and mights, and that's why we said, like, let's figure out what we're doing.
I was just in there about 3 weeks ago in the building. There's still a lot of stuff in there. So I almost think that they need like a metal recycler to come through and pick out what he wants. Well, I think there's a lot of salvageable stuff. I mean, there's some steel that in there that could be used, but that somebody has to go through and do that.
Are the presses still in there?
Pardon?
Are the presses still in there?
No, presses were sold probably 2 or 3 years before they went out of business.
So, I mean, from an EDA perspective, we're just trying to advise them on reasonable steps to move forward and, get to a conclusion. There's been we haven't offered to buy it. We haven't offered to, do anything at this point, other than right now provide them advice, get this information done. Then we'll actually have something to talk about and see if there's, if assistance is needed. Then we can take that up as a separate conversation. But we can't talk about helping or doing anything if we don't know what's there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So that should, the initial steps should be a pretty nominal cost. So that's where that sits as an update. And I do think it's underway because their broker did contact me and we got into some specifics about who to contact and what to ask them for. So I think they're doing that. Okay. But onus is on them. So that's it. Okay. Executive Director report. I think that's you. Do you have anything to report?
I don't have any report, thank you.
Treasurer report, John?
What land do we own?
Good question.
49,000? Do we? Oh, is that the BP site?
I was gonna say BP site, so that would be 49,000. So 100 and some thousand, 200,000.
I don't know. And you're looking, You're looking at our financials.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's what I will say. So, some of the transactions that have occurred over, a number of years, are effectively have been recommended by the EDA, or executed by the council. So I don't know what has been left in our name or whether it went into the broader, city of North St. Paul ownership or what's been done. And so that is something we do need to catch up with. I don't know that it's super urgent, but I think before, maybe before year end or at year end, we should, I'd actually prefer to do it before year end. So when the year end financials are done, are you guys calendar? You guys 12/31? Okay. Yeah. So we should, before 12/31, I think it would be, we should have, treasurer, maybe myself, city manager, finance. Let's just run through it and understand what is what.
I'm assuming there's not a whole lot of general ledger
No,
adds or subtract or,
not much.
but it would be nice. I'm assuming the 269,000 in cash is in the general bank account. I'm sure we don't have our own
We don't.
account.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, to your point on the land, I would, I do have some questions about transactions that have occurred. Okay, well, who holds that land? Because I do, part of that, and I don't think it'll be hard to get there.
No.
It's not so much saying, well, it should be on the EDA books, not, it's just, does the city own it or not?
Yeah.
Because there was a question about a couple of parcels down there in Commerce Park. And
Okay.
that, I'm not sure what the status of it is, but it would be good for us to know. We need to know, update on our owned inventory as well.
Just as someone also, we have to be on top of it. We should know prior to any particular report and how that may be come down the pipe that we're not aware of. I think we need to know what I agree with you 100%, Robert, that this way you get that done.
Yeah. Right, we should know, we should have the inventory for.
Correct.
So, maybe the to-do coming out of there is just between now and maybe mid-December, we get a powwow. I don't think it'd take more than an hour. With finance and EDA, treasurer, myself, you. Okay. I have nothing additional to work through things on the agenda. So. Myself on the agenda. Mayor?
I'd say the only thing is the restaurant, it's a big deal for us. We're moving forward with the business subsidy trying to get that in place. I believe he has not signed the lease yet. It was given to him a week and a half ago. He's still working with the attorneys, he's on vacation. And I know we're all in Tracy on vacation this week, and so thought was for him to sign it this week, and that would kind of tie it into the building over there, and then we can start promoting it. We can start do a public announcement in regards to that. We have the communications person who's kind of ready to go on it, but we want to get that signed document before we actually make the announcement. He's real excited. I'm hearing from the developers that he's still very excited, wants to move in sooner than later. This is kind of his pet project. He's just all gung ho about it. He's already announced to his class reunion. He's a North High grad, so he announced at his class reunion at his restaurant that he will be opening up a restaurant. So
not committed.
So it's exciting, I think, you know, as a PDA, as a city, the developers, I think that should be kind of a, you know, a real exciting times for us. Because that's something that the people have been asking for years and years and years. I think we're finally there. Other than that, we'll just keep pointing to it. I think Brian's doing a great job, interim city manager. I know he's took on a lot and, you know, doing things, finding things that Scott was doing before, that, you know, he's taken on that. We just kind of keep moving forward. I think we're working well with staff. Staff is working well with him. And things are going good.
Does that mean I have to quit giving you a hard
Yes.
The new city manager, did go out to, bid for a company. We did approve a company, Headhunter, to start that process. What's the name of the company?
David Brown.
He's met with city council members, just get a profile and kind of what we're looking for a city manager. And then move forward from that. And hopefully by December is kind of what he's thinking.
December 1st, we're hoping to have somebody on board.
Okay.
December 1st.
So hopefully by then we'll have a new city manager and then we can.
His name Brian.
Nope.
We have a new police chief starting, I believe,
Next Monday.
next Monday. We do have a new finance director, who's working out well. Everything's going good.
Can I ask, is the audit done?
Audit is not done. We don't know when exactly it will be done. We've been, I think, kind of asking to be done sooner than later. But nothing.
They didn't even give us a general date. When the information was turned in, they just said, okay, well, it's in our report. It'll be with us for a while. So I don't know if there's people or other items that are back in front of us or I mean, no clue what a timeline.
But given, you know, public unveiling of that process, it seemed we'd want to have a conclusion to that sooner rather than later.
Public unveiling though didn't come from them. They're not that way.
No, I understand.
You know, I don't even know how public they take these things. I'm sure it's filed on a basis, but they don't put a report or something.
No, I know they didn't. I'm just, it's a known fact. The city's under audit.
Yep.
It'd also be good to say audit's complete. Whatever nuggets came out of it or been dealt with. And
Findings, yeah. Yeah.
Bring up the closure, be done with it. In a ways, I'm.
Oh, I'm sure, absolutely. We'd rather have good news about North St. Paul, not something dark cloud hanging over us, so.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
No, that's it.
Okay. Other members of the EDA? Councilmember Paul?
I can follow the man.
I'm good.
Staff report.
I've had actually several phone calls about properties in North St. Paul. And it's my understanding that they're going to our 2040 comp plan and reviewing that and then inquiring about, well, I've had actually several on that BP location and then a couple on the oil can Henry's. So should I just refer those to you or is there something, information that I can give them? Or how should I handle that?
When you say they're going to the comp plan,
They said, oh, I was on your website on the 2040 comp plan, you know, reviewing the comp plan. So that's where they're getting their information about what our future idea is for locations, but I think that's the extent of what's out there. Like, are they city-owned properties? Is it something that you would consider? I know the BP had an inquiry on if that could go industrial, because that's the mixed use corridor. And then I had another builder inquire about multi-family residential housing in that area. Yeah. Or just anything that's available.
It's earmarked for the highway. 120 and 36.
Yeah, until that's,
So
till that's done, we're gonna know what.
yeah, we're not gonna give that up until we know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, can I, let me ask a question. So I mean, I think it was, at times it was not Scott, but for a period, Scott Dudek, in addition to being city manager, kind of served as the pro temp economic development staff person and would field a lot of these discussions and calls. So we don't have anybody on staff that's presently doing that. Is that fair to say?
You're
Or Lisa, so you're taking the call, but you're not sure the answers to get it.
Right, that's my question is, are these areas for sale? Well, obviously you said the BP is not. What about the oil can Henry's?
It is, but that's that would be a private conveyance. It's privately owned.
Okay,
It's owned by Valvoline Corporate.
okay.
Um,
And then is that area next to that, is that city-owned property where the old ground was? Or is
No,
that one in the
that's
same?
Privately owned, different.
Okay. Okay. Okay, but those properties are available for, or they are for sale, but they're through private properties,
Private.
or excuse me.
I
private,
don't
yeah.
know I don't know that the ground round property is for sale. I've not seen it advertised for sale, but that doesn't,
Okay.
everything's for sale. Okay.
Just gotta put the right price to it. The other, so on that same note, and someone else inquired about a multifamily developer wants to know if there's any opportunity in North St. Paul at this time.
17th Avenue.
Yeah, so calls like that. I mean, they should find their way, I guess, for now to the EDA because, I mean, to me, if you ask me that question, I have 10 in return to be able to give an answer. Multifamily can be 4 units or it can be 400 units. So it depends on what kind of scale and what they're looking for. I would say on its face, and I'm just giving an example, not for a specific answer to this individual, but you know, the spot between Sidewinders and the tattoo shop. If you wanted to do a small infill multifamily or multi-use building, that you could do one there. You're not going to get many units out of it, but it's possible. I've seen concept plans that put retail on the first floor and 4 to 6 units above it. But that may not be what they're asking about.
Sure,
They
sure.
might see everything that's going on down here on the anchor site. They might be looking for something along that order of magnitude.
Well, I think if I could just let them know what is available and whether it's owned by the city or if it's privately owned, then they can make that determination of whether or not it'll work for them.
Now, I think we have I believe we have a link on the website that shows
We
properties
do.
that are available.
Carrie's saying we do. Can you?
Sorry, she's spoken.
You told me nobody was on.
Known from the public. She's not public.
Um,
I'll share the link with the EDA. I just did some updates on it the other day.
Oh, you're cutting out on us.
I will send the link to everybody on the EDA. It's current. I just actually worked on it the other day. So there's an active listing of properties available in North St. Paul on our website.
Right, and
Thank you.
those are both city owned and privately owned, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's the best place to send folks for initial inquiry, I would think.
Okay.
And we also have, as we discussed at the joint meeting, yeah, we do have the comp plan, but if somebody does call and inquire, I would also refer to the, even though it may require some updating, the redevelopment master plan, which is also on our website, which provides a bit more detail about what the city's vision is and a little bit more micro than what the comp plan shows.
Okay, thank you. So along those lines, with the redevelopment master plan, I had forwarded you the information on what is permitted use in our downtown district.
Mhm.
And I know we had previously had a conversation. I thought that the planning commission reviewed and approved all new business inquiries. And she said, or Elaine told me, who's the, as you know, the chair,
Mhm.
she said, no, the only time it would go for review is if it's not a permitted use and they would have to do some kind of interim use or conditional use. So I don't know, if that list conflicts with anything that you have thoughts on, if you wanted to.
I mean, personally, yes, it does, but I don't have control over the zoning code.
Okay, so nothing that you're going to be looking to, okay,
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think anything in the downtown should be permitted use. I think everything should be conditional use, but that's my opinion.
okay, which it was previously and
That's
then
not
they
what the
changed
zoning
it.
code-
Yep, okay, just wanted to make
But
sure.
that is a correct statement. So as an example, if somebody wanted to go into, we'll just pick on the Lilly building, if somebody wanted to go in there and said, I wanted to do X, Y, or Z, and it's listed as a permitted use, it does not require any sort of approval from planning or anything else. They
Yeah.
can Come in and
Yeah,
get a permit to do their construction and get a
Mhm.
business license and off they go.
yep, hence the adult daycare and caring for cats and everything. Okay,
And to be honest with you, if they're really stubborn about it, council could even vote against it and they can
Oh,
take it
sure.
to court. So as long as it's a permitted use, we couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And that's why we.
yes, like in 2013 or somewhere around that time frame. Prior to that, it had been conditional use. And it was just way too time consuming is what my understanding is, for the planning commission to handle something like that. So they identified what would be permitted and then they would only review what's not permitted.
Which format would be deemed best for the city?
All right now, conditional. use.
So that's something that needs to be readdressed.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a pretty major undertaking, and I think, when it's unfolded, but so the downtown, it used to be called the DD district, right? And so, and basic, diversified district, so everything was conditional use. And there was, and that were on a conditional use, I mean, everything from tattoo parlors to new housing to, there's a lot of stuff in there. Theory being is, there's a lot of things we can accept and, but there was an argument made that, when you ask what's best for the city, I think the counter argument was that as a developer, that becomes, potentially restricted. You have to jump a lot of hurdles to find out whether you'll get the end.
Money,
Right.
you're a developer, obviously.
So somehow, in the process, the answer wound up being, well, let's make all this stuff that seems okay, let's make it a permitted use, so they don't have to go through this process. We could argue all day long as to whether ultimately it is. Yeah. What happens is you do lose some control from the standpoint of a use to vacate, another use can keep in there that's a permitted use. And then a group such as the EDA that might say, if that became available, maybe we can grab it, consolidate and do something to meet the larger vision of what the city has, but you miss that opportunity because it's a private sale transaction. You don't know anything about it until somebody walks into the counter and says, here's my plans to redo, you know, this space. And that's just the way it goes down. I think, personally, I think that it's not the undertaking of redoing that at this juncture, based on the inventory that is left. I don't know that it's, I mean, that's a big deal, right? Rewriting zoning code. I don't know that it's worth that effort. What I think a better effort is for EDA and getting somebody on staff that stays in tune. And again, I'm saying somebody dedicated to this. I'm not saying staff's not doing their job. That's not my suggestion, but somebody dedicated on staff that's watching this all the time. You know, from an EDA perspective.
Well, especially as we build out, you know, our projects that we are gonna do. A project like the Lilly Building is gonna be very important to how it looks downtown. Right? And if we don't stay on top of that.
Now that, you know, so that case, right? Let's say the Lilly building, under hypothetically, let's say the Lilly building gets flattened. Okay. We're a little less subject to what can come in there. Correct. But we're not subject to, it can look like whatever it wants to look like. They still got to get approval for that. Right. If they're going to build something new, at least as a city, we get to weigh in and say, well, it's not going to have lap siding on it or whatever. We're not going to have a vinyl sided commercial building. So at least there's a little bit of play. We may not like what they're doing inside. But we have a little bit of control at least. So, but when you have an existing building, the old people leave, new people come in, it's done. And the other part of that too, which directly kind of ties into part, a lot of cities, this is where people get from. So you can leave, next guy comes in, but the next guy's leaving. And the problem is we don't have parking requirements. You can come in that's gonna have to put, you know, the people that leave could have 8 people in there on a daily basis, and the people coming in could have 40. We won't know until they're finding a place to park.
Right. All of a sudden put an Dollar General in there or something like that. They're gonna have 40 cars downtown.
In and out, right? So there's some detractors to it, but I think the answer, my opinion from an EDA perspective, the answer is again to be more attentive. And the only way we can do that, because the EDA as a rule, we're not here every day, so is to get a staff member that is paying attention to that kind of stuff from an EDA, a purely EDA perspective.
And hopefully communicating with us.
Part of the discussion, maybe, maybe workshop. We're talking budget.
I don't know. So I don't know if that answers your question. Here's what I would say in the interim until we have somebody that we can send. If there's a, like you mentioned, this developer, it's a good example. You know, if you get a call like that and there's nobody, we can't reasonably, you know, field that within the city. I think kicking that an email to myself and the mayor, we can get it somebody to the appropriate party to return the call and have a discussion, because I think if somebody's coming saying, hey, I'm interested in, which that's what it says to me, I'm interested in building something in your town. We don't want to let them just, you know, evaporate. We would like the opportunity for a discussion. Right now, the only way to have that is somebody at this table needs to have a discussion.
And I had a discussion with the potential developer, the Lilly building. He called me and he had a, you know, purchase unit going on, but wanted to know what the vision of the city. You know, was able to have a good discussion with him, you know, 45-minute discussion. It was very helpful to, you know, to have that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
New business? I do have future business is, no, just second while we're talking. we got the okay from the county, and we do have a guy who said we can do a left turn lane into Target off of Ninth. And I think we should either have Target be knowing that, because they might, what you think, Robert? They might be very receptive to that. They might fund it. I think that would really open up that corridor there, then. For potential restaurant.
That would also, I would think that would play into the fact that, the piece of property behind the credit union. Pardon?
It's owned by Target. I think.
Yes.
Right, so it's gonna add value to that. It's gonna add value to the Oklahoma round site and Old Camp Henry's. Access.
If they won't be more than one partner. You know, so yeah, I think it's worth going out, right?
Well, I don't know if you've ever dealt with Target, but we've dealt with Target many times, and they are not exactly the easiest people to deal with. But that's from a business perspective, trying to buy property from them.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
On our side.
what's that?
It does benefits.
Yeah, I think it benefits them in a multitude of ways. And so but I don't know how they are with their first things and stuff like this, but, I think it should be something to make them aware. I'm not sure how we get there.
I think one is to make that connection again with the county person saying that we noticed out of an email from him. Saying that they would be receptive to having that open up.
Would be,
I think that's a good stroke of business.
I even clean up the piece of concrete there, if I can bring it.
Still. Plant the flower. I know.
I mean, it looks terrible. We can, clean that up and
So in terms of,
when we get there.
well, yeah, in terms of making, well, I think we should confirm something from the county. Yeah, they'd be receptive to it.
I just know what they're talking for cost as well, and for Target. seeing
Right, how much can we do? Can we do the left in and right out or
well, I think that's your only option.
just left in?
Yeah, I don't
They're not gonna
think
let
the
you go.
traffic engineer will ever allow left out.
No, I don't think so either.
No. I certainly wouldn't if I was a traffic engineer, but
Actually, I wouldn't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want people to turn on.
Yeah, no, you can, that'd have to be a signal and it's proximity to another signal, or they won't let it out.
I see that. Right.
yeah, left in would.
And before the guy leaves or whatever, I don't know. It's just,
I mean, if the county, if somebody in the county has said at some point in the recent past that they'd be receptive to it, I think it would be prudent to, to try to reach out to Target and let them know that I don't know from a, a city perspective and or an EDA perspective specifically how much benefit that gives us, but so I wouldn't spend a ton of time on it personally, but not at this juncture.
to me, it seems like it'd be a development potential for
Would help the ground round side. I would agree that would be that and the oil can.
Yeah, definitely would. Okay, and then might,
That's right in there. Yeah.
well, I every time I go to Target, I drive by that empty lot going, why do you have, basically a 1 acre site? Or maybe bigger than a 1 acre
Well, I
site.
know who would love to buy is Moore's Market there.
They can't get anywhere with Target?
What things happen. If you ever been over that Moore's Market, it's busy. You can see all the semis. Or up over there. That's another issue. Storage. Yeah, there's exactly. They don't have the room. And it's turning into kind of a plate over there. Yep. The semis are pulling in and sitting.
So what's the to do here? Okay, to try to find that email from the county.
Well, it's too bad we couldn't have feedback on their, new rain gardens. They got a lot of construction going over there now.
Oh, you side.
Yeah.
Is that part of the
Target's parking lot, yeah, they're building rain gardens at Target's parking lot.
They got a lot of stuff going on the south end of the lot.
Yeah,
And then you've got a parking area.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on back in entertainment.
I don't either.
It's all fenced off.
Yep.
But they've got a lot of excavation.
Is it just site, improvement?
Well, the site improvement, I don't know what they're digging, because they've got a
Yeah,
hole.
they got a big hole.
Yep, they got a big hole in the ground, in the south end.
Are they also correcting the water issues that, like behind PCF it had? Is that part of the same project or is that different?
I'm not aware of that. I know they put a new gas main back there as well. Imagine.
Yeah,
Set of plans and stuff.
they permitted after the fact.
I know on the north side of the lot.
It's not unusual, but
I'm assuming, once the north side is gonna be done, the south side, by the pharmacy is gonna be done as well. And what's the point of doing it only in half a lot?
Right, exactly. I have no idea what that hole in the ground is representing.
That's where all the water.
The storm sewer? Well, I would think you guys would know about that, if that was the case.
So maybe we, the to do right now is see if we could, locate this email. It'd be good to at least have a contact with the city that's receptive before we reach out to Target. And then, we can talk about that next meeting. And then if we do find it, then next step would be to go about getting hold of the right person at Target.
What's going on with the quick trip and all that, I mean, traffic is gonna be heavy going that way. So having a left turn on, probably would be very helpful for that.
I don't know how it could get any heavier than it is at rush hour. That comes home that way. And she'll go way out of her way to avoid coming down at night. Although I know she will be the first one to quick turn.
I think that quick trip is gonna be off for good.
Yep, I agree.
And I think Holiday will be with. I think they're gonna back it too. Oh, probably in the end.
Well, all I can say is that hopefully the Holiday, since they've had pretty much a monopoly for a long time, I don't think they've operated that and maintained the property the way it should be
Let
maintained.
me ask you this, so the Holiday, that's not 24 hours,
So,
and I think they're limited because they're close to residential, but when they built it, but they put restrictions on the time. Quick Trip, I believe, is gonna be 24 hours.
because they're much farther away from residential.
I don't know. I don't know if that's an ordinance. I don't know what that criteria is. I've never heard, but I have heard the same thing, that the hours that Holiday are limited versus the 24/7 plan. But this one's 24 hours. Right here, this one? This one's 24 hours, isn't it?
I can assure you, Quick Trip did their homework and they're 24.
Oh, yeah, I guarantee you. Yep. Oh, have I ever told you that story?
24 hours.
We had, I used to work for a company that had Panakuchen, and they were the franchisor for Panakuchen.
The other one's.
And they also were the franchisee for Wendy's. And they had a site
I'd be curious.
that the city of Bloomington
Just get a minute.
was gonna build a hotel
They will.
on 96th, between 96th and Lindale and the freeway. And they got all the way to final approval, and some little guy in the back stands up and raises his hand and stands up and goes, I thought we had an ordinance that you couldn't have a liquor license within 500 feet of a church. And you could just see the whole council just went. Catholic church is kitty corner from the back of the property.
Oh, boy.
The whole hotel situation, it all went right down the drain.
Really?
Yep. So, yeah, I would
That's
assume,
something that I'm curious because That's gonna be near residential, that's near apartments, that's.
Mhm.
Oh, the apartment right next to it, is that an
Mhm.
ordinance that we have?
They're gonna get grandfathered because they'll be done before they start.
Or somehow they open up. They will be done, yeah, you're right.
That's some stuff that quick trip lawyers. Okay, anything else? Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for September 14th at 3 p.m.
So for our next meeting, would you want someone else to do the agenda?
No, it's not. So we did have a scheduling snafu, as everyone probably is aware, last week. So I don't know customarily what has been done. I think that the meetings have been posted with I don't want to say sterile agenda or an unreal agenda, but usually with an agenda based on things that are known carryover future business items from the prior meeting. Sometimes added to or taken away prior to the meeting, sometimes done at adopting agenda stage. We might add or take away at that point in time. I would not, in terms of whatever is required for official posting to conduct the meeting. I mean, we have to get the agenda posted as we have it, whether it's been approved or not. I mean,
Right, it doesn't get approved until the meeting, but it has to be posted, whatever you're going to have. For the contents of the agenda have to be posted 3 days prior, at least 3 working days prior to the meeting. And I know that didn't always happen previously when Scott was here, but then towards the end, I know he really made an effort because it must have been called out on him that, it hadn't been posted the 3 days in advance. So I don't know the details of that, but I do know that, yes, things were changed at the last minute and things were actually not even posted and people just came to the meeting. So, but I think going forward, we'll have to stick with the fact that it does need to be posted, whatever's going to be discussed.
yeah, and I personally don't have a problem getting to it. But
Okay.
I do sometimes have a problem getting to it if it's, 4 or 5 days in advance, maybe I'm, maybe even something else. I think which was part of the challenges last time. So, we depart here today and if within, if we can come to, because I think we should be able to come to a reasonable agenda, within a handful of days following this meeting.
Okay,
For the next meeting, not to say something might change, there may well something might change between now and then, but, then we can do that at. the meeting.
yeah, we will have plenty of time to make those adjustments as long as it's posted 3 days prior. Yeah.
And then hopefully we can avoid.
I'll take the blame.
Well, I just didn't know.
Yeah. And really all of the commissioners, well, the chair from the other commissions that I'm on, the chair does do,
Try the agenda.
yes, but I know Scott did for this.
He usually did it for the ED.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He would call me in or whatever.
Yeah,
Sometimes
just to
he would.
confirm. Yeah, but the other commissioners, the chair does create the agenda.
So what I'm hearing then is for me to push to you, here's the agenda for the next meeting.
And I'll certainly reach out.
Okay,
Yeah,
that'd be all.
yeah. But you're saying 4 to 5 days you let me know what works for you and I'll make that happen.
Well, sometimes it might be fine.
Okay.
I mean, if we have 2 weeks before the meeting, if the process has started, then it'll. without
It'll
doubt
work.
get done.
Okay, I'll put that on my calendar.
I'll get to you
Yep.
on there.
That's fine. We made it work.
That's it. All right. Meeting is adjourned.
You made the motion and Archie second.
Big gavel.
Lick the one off the wall.
I can ask, well, Gary, you're still on?
Yes, I'm still on.
Can we hold the workshop in our meeting room up here? Or are we counting on doing that?
Well, the cable commission will be there, so that's much better if we can use the microphones in the council chambers, please. Will that work?
Great, yep.
Okay.
We just need one of those boxing